This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. We are joined now by Gene Kershner, writes about horse racing for the Buffalo News. I always like to talk to Gene. Sits next to me when he's in town up in Saratoga in the summertime. Gene, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
Very good. And I heard my director asking you when he contacted you by phone a couple of minutes ago, and I haven't talked to you since. I'm just wondering, are you guys still digging out, or did you manage to miss it? Because Buffalo, of course, a month or so ago, got hit with that incredible snowstorm. But I subsequently read if you went like 10 miles in one direction, you didn't get hit with anything.
I'm up north of the city in Amherst, and luckily we had green grass at the house during that, but about 12 miles south of us, there was 7 feet of snow, and people, it took a week to dig out some folks. But now we're going to have a green Christmas here, believe it or not.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. I mean, subsequently, we didn't get your kind of snow, but we got hit with a couple of decent storms, and it looked like winter had kicked in. But the last week or so, it's warmed up a little bit, and we've had some rain, so we're in kind of the same situation, bare lawns and whatnot. I know it's not great for looking out the window for the white Christmas, and, the kids, if you get a sled for Christmas, it's not that fun. But for me, driving into work, it's perfect.
It's not bad at all.
All right, let's get into, as noted at the top of the show, I said every year you put out the Racing Festivus column in the Buffalo News, and you've done it again this year, highlights and lowlights of the racing year past. Let's touch on the column most recently that appeared online on the Buffalo News website and get some of your thoughts on things that happened in 2014. And let's kick it off, probably one of the biggest stories of the year, California Chrome. And he hits in it, because this is Racing Festivus, he hits in the feats of strength category. There's also the airing of grievances, referring to, of course, the famous Seinfeld episode. But feats of strength, California Chrome, of course, 2/3 of the Triple Crown. But you also mentioned, and Gene, I wanted to go back, and this is the end of 2013, granted, but it does play into what you thought was part of the interest of 2014 for California Chrome. We're going to go back to the King Glorious last year, which kicked off the nice win streak for California Chrome, which wound up going through the Preakness. But King Glorious was at Hollywood Park, and that makes this win that we're going to take a look at, and California Chrome will be the number 8 horse, a win on a synthetic surface. And then, as you say, part of the feats of strength was not only 2/3 of the Triple Crown, but just a few weeks ago when California Chrome won the Hollywood Derby, won on the grass. So he's kind of a triple play on surfaces as well, which was one of the feats of strength of 2014.
Yeah, there's actually a website, I think, called OmniSurfaceStars.com or something like that, that highlights horses that have won on all 3 of the surfaces. And, that kicked off his sixth race win streak back in December, and then, obviously, faring very well on dirt through the Triple Crown season, and then, capping it off last month with the win at Hollywood, in the Hollywood Derby on the turf at Del Mar, which is terrific. But really, the feats of strength for me was the fact that not only did he win on all 3 surfaces, but, he went from December through May, those 6 races, a grueling, period of time, and just, kept coming out on top and winning it convincingly, at least the first 4 races, and then, holding off the closers in the 2 Triple Crown races.
Yeah, and then came back and, threw in a dud in the Pennsylvania Derby, but I certainly think the Breeders' Cup Classic was a very good run, and then he throws in the Hollywood Derby to end the year. What 3-year-old Eclipse, are you tilting in his direction?
Yeah, I am. I'm leaning towards him right now. I mean, you got to look at the full body of work. You can't be too swayed by the Breeders' Cup Classic, and then, we'll talk about that in a few minutes in my airing of grievances. But, I think he had a solid body work. The 2 Triple Crown races really kind of, step up. I look at the grade 1s over the grade 2s also.
All right, and let's move down the list. Next on the feats of strength, the huge TV screen down at Churchill Downs, which is innovative as far as a corporate situation and adding something for the fans. And Gene, I'd love to get your opinion. We have a shot here that shows the screen. It is a huge screen on the back stretch, but it is in full view of everybody on the front stretch. It's that big. And I'll tell you, Gene, when I first read about it, I wasn't quite sure, but subsequently I've talked to Jenny Reese and Teresa Gennaro, folks who have been there and seen it, and it seems like the reviews are pretty good.
Oh, it's got a beautiful picture. I mean, it's like I think I wrote in my column, 30 times brighter than a standard HD TV. And the feat of strength here is it can withstand a Category 1 hurricane, which that thing you just can't blow it over. It's big, and I couldn't believe it when I was on the backstretch Derby week, and I took that picture that's on my column at sportsinc.buffalonews.com. It's just so massive. You just keep staring at it because it's so big.
And as I say, when I first read, and they had some mock-ups that they were showing when they first announced it, and I thought, I don't know, this is huge, and is it going to dominate? But it really seems like, and it seems like maybe they felt things out as to what to display exactly. But as I say, the reviews have been good, and I think they've figured out what to display and how to make it beneficial to the fans, and it looks like it's a great addition to the racetrack.
Oh, absolutely, especially if folks that are, in the infield during Derby Day. I mean, they can, look up all the races going on, which is tremendous, and you can see the post parades where normally, you wouldn't be able to see that from the infield.
And as I say, you like to see that kind of innovation done on a corporate level that's beneficial to the race fans. I don't know whether that'll work at every racetrack, but I think certainly on big days at Churchill Downs, I think those Friday nights they have down there, I think this is absolutely a bonus for the racing fans. All right, let's move on. More feats of strength, and everybody has to agree with this one. You have Untappable and Rosie Napravnik walking through the 3-year-old filly division, and we're going to look at the highlight of her year, which ties in nicely with the Rosie Napravnik story as well. We're going to watch the stretch run to the Breeders' Cup Distaff. Number 10, Untappable, does it as the 8-5 favorite. Does it pretty nicely over a very talented Don't Tell Sophia. But yeah, Untappable. You take the Haskell out where she faced the boys, and it was just a phenomenal year. And as I say, then you roll in the Rosie Napravnik story, and it really is feats of strength.
Yes, I mean 6 for 6 on the year in the 3-year-old filly division, and you got to give him credit for taking a shot, against the boys and the Haskell. I mean, I give her a couple points just for that, because a lot of times connections don't, take that step up to see if they can handle the males.
And no question about it. And I think that was the case that a lot of people felt that way, because certainly up here at Saratoga we were thinking, hey, it'd be fun to see her in the Alabama, but you certainly understood a horse that was showing that kind of talent goes down. And yeah, that's just kind of in the bigger picture of racing, that was nice of them to take the shot. And then she came back and ran very well, as noted there in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, so winds the year up. And then you toss in the Rosie story and the retirement announcement that the win allowed her to make on national television. It was all a pretty good story. All right, let's move over to airing of grievances. And on top, I got to be right with you here. Naira's Belmont Day Fiasco is the way you have it titled. And I'll say this. I thought the day itself, and it was the first time I'd ever been to the Belmont Stakes, but I thought the day itself was okay. I enjoyed the day. Certainly the racing was top quality. And I didn't get into any kind of lines. I don't know if I went to any concession stands, so I can't address that. But I made bets at the windows and whatnot. And as I say, the racing was good. For me, though, the 3 hours in the parking lot, we spent more time in the parking lot after than it took us to drive back up here to the Albany area. So that was certainly a little bit disappointing. And hopefully they will learn from that and there will be improvements in the future.
Well, from a group that preaches the guest experience, I think it was one of those things where, the racing was tremendous. I mean, they had, a wonderful card and, wasn't trouble getting to the windows for the most part. But the whole guest experience takes you from, the minute you walk into the track to the time you get out. And I left the press box about 11:15 because I was watching the Stanley Cup game because I definitely didn't want to go out there in that mess. And there was still a line to get out of the parking lot at 11:15 at night. I'm not usually too unsure of myself when I walk out into a dark parking lot, but I wasn't too comfortable walking out there at Belmont night.
Yeah, and again, you hope they learn from that. The thing that I found funny with that Stanley Cup game, I said, boy, they could have put up some tents out in the parking lot, showed the game. If they didn't want to serve beer out in the parking lot, I can understand that, but cook up some burgers and sell burgers and soda or something, and pull maybe a third of the people out of the line, and that might have helped things. And then let's hope they have some ideas like that in the future, because that did put a damper on the end of the day. As I say, you have a good day and the racing's really good and fun and there's a chance at a Triple Crown, and then you go out and sit in a line in the parking lot for 3 hours. It took some of the specialness off the day, so we can only hope things improve. Next up, in airing of grievances, mentioned this actually a little bit earlier because Ed Musselman's lawsuit against Churchill Downs, they agreed to a voluntary dismissal, but all that came from the scuffle, Dale Romans and Indian Charlie, and that was the airing of grievances.
It's usually my airing of grievances, but I think I had to throw Dale in there just for this, the sight and thought of his pants coming down in the process. I don't have much more information other than that, and that just gave me a chuckle.
Yeah. And people said afterwards, how was it with all these cell phones? People didn't get a picture of that. And then you really start thinking, do you want a picture of that? No, you don't want to. Even envisioning it is not a good thing. But that was one of the, again, we're looking at maybe some highlights and lowlights, and also in there, I like this, the next airing of grievances category in here. I like the title, Steve Coburn taking his Andy Warhol moment a bit too far. And that was his rant after the Belmont Stakes caught on NBC. And I said it after, I said, because we interviewed him for OTB a couple of days before, and he was just so invested, and I think had such confidence. I could see his disappointment, and I gave him kind of a pass for that rant right after the race. But then when he doubled down the next day, that's when I started to think, oh, Steve, you got to step back. And a couple of days later, he did. And by the time they rolled into the Hollywood Derby later in the year, I think kind of all was forgiven, because he and that group were a fun story. But that certainly was a little bit of a black eye for him right after the Belmont Stakes. Yeah,
it was kind of the water cooler story for non-horse racing fans. That was kind of the moment that everybody kind of talked about afterwards, as opposed to geez, it's too bad that he didn't win the Triple Crown. It was like, hey, what was that guy talking about? And that was the question I ended up having to answer, more times than not. But to his credit, I got to spend some time with him at the Breeders' Cup in the morning on Thursday before the races, and he's come. He did a total 360 from where he was at that moment after the Belmont. You got to give him somewhat of a pass that he was caught up in the emotions and whatnot, but he still makes the list.
Yeah, and that's exactly what. Yeah. Oh, well, you have to put the moment in, because that certainly was a punctuation during the year. But yeah, I kind of gave him a pass because, as I said, you could see a couple of days before the race just how invested he was, and it must have been a bitter disappointment. But then the next day, as I said, he should have turned right around then. It took him a couple of days, but you could see, as you say, by the time it got around the Breeders' Cup and the Hollywood Derby, he had come around, and the fans had kind of rallied around a little bit as well. And let me ask you, speaking of Breeders' Cup, and I've talked to some other people about this, and I think you got a sense of that at the Hollywood Derby when Delmar had a huge crowd for him running there. It just seems like California Chrome out there is an incredible favorite. You were out there, so give us a sense, because I've asked other people about this. Watching myself on TV, it seemed like when he came on track, you could hear the roar from the crowd. California Chrome's a real fan favorite out there.
Yeah, I think the only other horse I've ever seen that probably got a larger roar at Santa Anita was Vignata, and her reign. But yeah, definitely people's choice out there, being from the West Coast. I mean, you had Jim Rome's horse out there too, who got his share of fans that were supporting him. But yeah, definitely California Chrome was probably the most supported from a fan vocalness.
Yeah, as I say, it's not usual that you hear that through the television screen, but you absolutely got a sense of that, and that's always fun when fans, when racing has a fan base like that rallying around some kind of horse. All right, finally, on the airing of grievances, and I'm with you on the airing of grievance here. You have it labeled Breeders' Cup Classic debacle. I think we have a shot of the horses coming out of the gate here, and the left turn taken by Bayern that kind of affected the race. And as you say, as you write about this, you get further down, and it's not so much the race, but the information as conveyed to people afterwards, how the stewards were thinking and whatnot. And Gene, I have said for years, I would love racetracks to have daily stewards reports on the website, and I applaud the tracks that do. Naira does and Tampa does, but a lot of them just, it's kind of a simple, well, this horse violated this rule, and so we disqualified it. I would like a little more, like the thought process that went into this, that was put out a couple of days later in the press conference by the stewards, and that seems to be kind of your complaint too, just maybe a little bit of a lack of transparency.
Yeah, for the most part, I mean, some of us were on East Coast deadline, so that didn't make things any easier for us, having it being in prime time back home. And, I like, when the NFL officials go to the replay and they come out, they actually explain what the call is. I don't see why these guys can't do that. They got their three heads together and come out and say, okay, here's the decision we made, here's the reasons we came with it, here's the rule book citing, and let's go on. 2 hours after the race, we're waiting to hear what did they decide? How did they come to this decision?
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. And again, you make a great point, and I've said this before too. The officials are right out there on the field making the calls, and you see them and you know who they are. Baseball, basketball, football. And these guys, I'd also like to hear, there are 3 of them. Was it a 2-1 vote? Was it unanimous? And I just think with the technology today and websites, they could do that so easily. You go back 20 years ago, and my idea maybe is not that worthwhile, because what do? You tack up the steward and their decision on a board in the, first floor of a grandstand someplace, and who's going to read it. But I think now with the internet, all that gives access to virtually the entire fan base across the country that's betting. I'd love to see racing move more in that direction and have a little more transparency in the stewards booth.
I agree with you more, Seth.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap things up. But before I wrap things up, you are a board member of the Thoroughfan Racing Organization, and I know the past couple of years you've been down at the breakfast they have the day before the Eclipse Awards are handed out. Really nice breakfast that adds in the NTRA Moment of the Year, also honors some racing individuals. And this year, it's no different. The day before the Eclipse Awards, there will be a Thoroughfan breakfast for folks who may be from our area, snowbirds, and headed down to that area. Why don't you give us a little preview of the Thoroughfan breakfast coming up on Eclipse Award weekend down at Gulfstream?
Yeah, it's our 3rd annual awards breakfast, and it's actually part of the actual Eclipse Award program. And this year we're going to honor with our Thoroughfan Award Michael Blowen,
nice.
from Old Friends, who's done so much for educating fans and the importance of caring for our equine athletes after their racing careers are over. Our keynote speaker is Jack Wolf, president of the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, and also the founder of Starlight Racing. So that'll be neat. And at the breakfast itself, the NTRA will release its Moment of the Year. Last year it was Mucho Macho Man winning the Breeders' Cup Classic. It'll be interesting to see what the Moment of the Year is, and that winning moment is based on fan voting. The breakfast is held January 16th, 2015, like you said, the morning before the Eclipse Awards at Gulfstream in the 10 Palms room, and tickets are $75. You can go to the thoroughfan.com/awards at the website, and you can get them. If you're a Thoroughfan member, there's discounted tickets, I believe, for $25 a ticket. So there'll be a full gourmet breakfast. You've got reserved seat and program for that day's races, so you get a little bit along with the breakfast and hearing some of these great folks speak. Horse Racing Nation does an annual Fan of the Year appointment, and they will make their announcement at the breakfast for that. They will be announcing their 4th annual Fan of the Year. So it's kind of neat that we provide them a platform to announce a Fan of the Year being a fan organization like we are.
And again, if folks are headed down to Gulfstream, will be down in that area that weekend. Certainly worth stopping by the breakfast, because it should be a lot of fun. And Gene, before we let you go, just for folks who maybe aren't familiar with Thoroughfan and are potentially our potential members for the organization, give us a little bit of the mission of Thoroughfan.
Oh yeah, we try to sponsor more education, get-togethers at the track. For trying to provide more access, trying to get you in the paddock and different things. So it's a fan-based, total grassroots organization that was founded, I believe, 6 years ago by Michael Amo and a group out of Saratoga, and now we've expanded throughout the country. So there's pockets in Kentucky and California and New Jersey and Florida, obviously. So it's a great group. If you go to the throwfan.com website, you'll see what we're doing. We have a Handicapper's Corner that's posted every weekend from January through the Breeders' Cup, so the big race of the week is out there. There's a weekly newsletter that talks about the different things going on. It's just a source of information for the fans, and it gives the fans a voice. Michael is actually also on the New York Fan Advisory Council, so we do have a seat at the table in New York.
Yeah, and we've had Michael on the show, and really right from the beginning, so it's been fun to watch the organization grow, and it is really a community of racing fans. If you're interested, again, Thoroughfan, the website, and it's spelled THOROFAN, Thoroughfan, and you can go to the website and find out more information. Gene, as always, we appreciate the visit. We'll recommend people to pop over to the Buffalo News website and pull up the Racing Festivus 2014 column, and I think Kreskin is around the corner?
Kreskin's this weekend, yep. We're 5 for 10 in 2014, so I bet 500 this year. So we'll see. We may have some new, edges on this one this year.
We'll get you plugged in some morning within the next couple of weeks to do a little review and preview 2014 and 2015 on the Kreskin side of things as well. But Gene, we appreciate the visit this morning, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you and yours, and as I say, we'll talk to you sometime within the next couple of weeks.